The Grand Assembly Hall floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure of metal and light that orbited the planet Velrax Prime. Inside its largest chamber, representatives from 40 different alien species sat in a circular arrangement, looking down at the floor where visitors stood to make their requests. The air smelled strange, filtered through systems designed to keep dozens of different life forms alive in one place. Envoy Taman stood on that floor, his black diplomatic uniform crisp and clean. Behind him stood Ambassador Jiwan, her hands clasped behind her back in a military stance. They were the only humans in a room full of beings that looked like insects, reptiles, birds, and things that had no comparison on Earth. The ceiling stretched high above them, decorated with symbols of peace and unity that now felt like lies. Taman had prepared for this moment for 3 years. He had learned 17 different languages. He had studied the customs of every species in the Council. He had brought evidence of humanity's achievements in art, science, medicine, and philosophy. His presentation had lasted 2 hours, showing everything that made humanity worthy of joining the galactic community. The silence that followed was not the good kind. High Arbiter Velmoth sat on the highest seat, his insect-like body towering over everyone else. His compound eyes reflected the lights of the chamber in 1,000 different directions. When he finally spoke, his voice came through a translator device that made it sound cold and mechanical. "We have heard your petition, human," Velmoth said. "The Council has discussed your species many times over the past 50 years. We have watched you carefully." Taman felt hope rise in his chest. "Then you have seen our progress, honored Arbiter. We have ended wars on our world. We have cured diseases. You have killed billions of your own kind," interrupted Counselor Thex, a reptilian creature with scales that gleamed like bronze. "Your history is written in blood. Your planet still bears the scars of nuclear weapons. You argue over resources like animals fighting over scraps." "That is our past," Taman said calmly, though his jaw tightened. "Every species has a difficult past. We have learned from our mistakes. We have grown." Counselor Miras, whose species resembled large birds with 6 wings, leaned forward. "The human makes a fair point. Many of us had violent histories before we reached the stars." Perhaps nothing," Thex hissed. "They are primitives. They discovered faster than light travel only 80 years ago. Most of them still believe in invisible gods. They eat the flesh of other animals. They are barbaric." Jiwan's hand moved slightly toward her side, where a weapon would normally rest. Taman caught her eye and gave the smallest shake of his head. "Not yet. Not here." Velmoth raised one of his many arms. "The discussion is concluded. The Council has voted. Humanity's petition for membership is denied. You may return to your home system and reapply in another century, when you have truly left your savage nature behind." The words hit Taman like a physical blow. A century. An entire human lifetime. All of this effort. All of this hope. For nothing. "Honored Arbiter," Taman said, his voice still controlled. "May I ask what we must do to prove ourselves worthy? What standards must we meet?" Thex laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Standards? You think this is about standards? Look at yourself, human. You are small. Weak. Your species has no natural armor, no venom, no telepathy. You cannot survive in the temperatures that I find comfortable. You would die in the atmosphere of most civilized worlds. You are fragile creatures from a fragile world, and you dare to stand before the powers of the galaxy and demand equality?" Taman's hands slowly curled into fists at his sides. Behind him, he could hear Jiwan's breathing change, becoming slower and more deliberate. It was the breathing pattern she used before combat. "We did not demand," Taman said quietly. "We asked. There is a difference. And we have answered," Velmoth said with finality. "This session is concluded." Taman bowed, the formal gesture of diplomatic respect that every culture in the Council recognized. He turned to leave, and Jiwan turned with him. They walked toward the exit with dignity, their backs straight, their steps measured. They were 5 meters from the door when Thex spoke again. "Run along home, little apes. Go play in your mud and leave the stars to your betters." Taman stopped. His shoulders tensed, but he did not turn around. Jiwan put a hand on his arm, urging him forward. They took another step. Then they heard the movement behind them. Fast, purposeful. Taman turned just in time to see Thex descending from his seat, moving with the speed of a predator. In his clawed hand, he held the staff of office, a ceremonial weapon that symbolized his authority. He swung it in a wide arc. The metal struck Taman across the face with a sound that echoed through the chamber. Taman fell to one knee, his hand going to his cheek. Blood ran between his fingers, bright red against his pale skin. The chamber erupted in shocked voices, some species crying out in alarm, others in what might have been approval. Jiwan moved like lightning. Her hand went to her belt, and she was halfway to Thex before Taman's voice stopped her. "Jiwan, stand down." She froze, her entire body vibrating with rage. "Sir, he struck you. He struck a diplomatic envoy. That's a violation of every—" "Stand down." Slowly, Jiwan stepped back, but her eyes never left Thex. The reptilian counselor was laughing, holding his staff like a trophy. Taman rose to his feet. Blood ran down his jaw and dripped onto his uniform. He took a white cloth from his pocket and pressed it to the wound. Then he looked up at the council, meeting the eyes of each counselor in turn. His gaze was cold, empty of the warmth and hope it had held before. "You have made your position clear," Taman said. His voice was steady, but something in it made several counselors shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Humanity will remember this moment. We will remember your words. We will remember this strike. And we will remember that when we came in peace, offering friendship and cooperation, you answered with violence and contempt." "Are you threatening the council?" Velmoth asked, but there was uncertainty in his mechanical voice now. "No, honored arbiter," Taman said. "I am simply making a statement of fact. Humanity has an excellent memory. We never forget. Not kindness, and not insult." He turned and walked to the exit. This time, no one stopped him. Jiwan followed, casting one last look at Thex that promised violence in a language older than words. The doors closed behind them with a sound like a tomb sealing shut. In the council chamber, Mira spread her wings in a gesture of distress. "This was a mistake," she said to anyone who would listen. "That species survived an ice age. They fought wars with weapons that could destroy their entire world. They climbed to the top of their planet's food chain, with nothing but their minds and their determination. We should not have—" "Unnum. Silence," Velmoth commanded. "They are nothing. Primitives. What can they possibly do to us?" In the hallway outside, Taman touched a device on his wrist. A communication channel opened, connecting him directly to Earth. "This is Envoy Taman," he said quietly. "Petition denied. Formal insult delivered. Recommend immediate activation of Protocol Reckoning." There was a pause. Then a woman's voice responded, cold and professional. "Confirmed, Envoy. Protocol Reckoning is active. Admiral Heejin sends her regards. She says, you should come home now. The rest of us have work to do." Taman smiled, though it made his injured face hurt. "Tell the Admiral I will see her soon. And tell her they have no idea what is coming." He disconnected the communication and looked at Jiwan. She was smiling too. The expression of a predator who had just been given permission to hunt. "Jiwan," he said. "How long until our fleets are ready?" "They have been ready for 30 years, sir. We just needed a reason. Now we have one." They walked to their shuttle, leaving drops of blood on the pristine floor behind them. Behind them, the council continued their session, laughing about the primitive humans who thought they deserved to sit among the stars. They would not be laughing for much longer. The video played on every screen across human space. Billions watched as Counselor Thex struck Envoy Taman across the face. They watched the blood fall. They watched their representative maintain dignity while being treated like an animal. They watched, and they remembered. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath Geneva, Fleet Admiral Hagen stood with her hands behind her back, watching the video for the 7th time. She was a small woman, barely reaching 160 centimeters, but everyone in the room stood a little straighter when she was present. Her silver hair was cut short in military fashion, and her dark eyes missed nothing. "Play it again," she said. "Admiral." "We have all seen it," said General Junho, commander of special operations. He was a big man, built like a bear, with scars on his hands from years of combat training. "We know what needs to be done. I want every officer in this command center to watch it one more time," Hagen said. "I want them to remember why we are about to do what we are going to do. I want them to understand that this is not revenge. This is consequence." The video played again. The sound of metal striking flesh echoed through the command center. When it finished, Hagen turned to face the assembled officers. 30 years ago, when we first made contact with the Galactic Council, what did I say?" she asked. President Minji, who stood in the back of the room, answered. "You said we should prepare for the possibility that they would not accept us. You said we should hope for peace, but prepare for war." "And what did the politicians say?" Hagen asked, looking directly at Minji. Minji sighed. She was younger than most world leaders. Only 45. But the last few hours had aged her. "We said you were paranoid. We said the age of war was over. We said no one would be stupid enough to attack diplomats in the modern galaxy. And yet," Hagen gestured at the frozen image of Taemin, bleeding on the floor. "Here we are." The room was silent. Officers stared at their screens, at the maps of the galaxy that showed Council territory in blue and human territory as a small red dot near the edge. It looked hopeless. It looked like humanity was nothing compared to the vast empire of the Council. Hagen smiled. "Dr. Sang-Yun, please brief everyone on the Prometheus project." An older man stood up, his white lab coat looking out of place among the military uniforms. Dr. Sang-Yun had been humanity's chief weapons researcher for 20 years. He was thin and nervous, constantly adjusting his glasses. But when he spoke about science, his voice became steady. "For 3 decades, we have been studying every species in the Galactic Council," he said. "We obtained biological samples through trade agreements. We analyzed their physiology, their psychology, their culture. We identified weaknesses, and then we built weapons specifically designed to exploit those weaknesses." A holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed the reptilian form of Counselor Thex's species. "The Kresh, for example," Sang-Hyun continued. "They have armored scales that can withstand most energy weapons. Their strength is 10 times that of a human. They are proud of being warrior race. But their biology has 3 critical flaws." The hologram changed, showing the internal structure of a Kresh body. First, their scales are weak at the joints. A kinetic round, traveling at 3,000 meters per second, can penetrate there easily. Second, their eyes are adapted to their home planet's red sun. Our standard flashbang grenades blind them for up to 6 hours. Third, and most important, they are cold-blooded. Drop the temperature by 20 degrees, and they become sluggish. Drop it by 40, and they cannot move at all. Another hologram appeared, this time showing Velmoth's insectoid species. "The Vreks are even more interesting," Sang-Hyun said, warming to his subject. "They communicate through pheromones. We have developed chemical agents that disrupt their entire communication system. Imagine if humanity suddenly lost the ability to speak or hear. That is what happens to them. They become confused, panicked, unable to coordinate. Their mighty fleets become collections of individual ships with no unified command." "How many species have you studied?" asked Captain Seokjin, who commanded the stealth frigate fleet. All 40 council species, Sang Yun said. We have specific weapons and tactics for each one. The galaxy thinks we are primitive because we still use kinetic weapons and explosives. They have moved on to pure energy weapons and defensive shields. But they forgot something important. What? Asked Minji. That a rock, thrown fast enough, will kill anything. Physics does not care about your technology level. General Junho stood up, taking over the briefing. He brought up a new display, showing the galaxy divided into sectors. Operation Reckoning has 3 phases, he said. Phase 1. We eliminate Councillor Thex and his species' military capability. This is personal, yes, but it is also strategic. The Kresh are the Council's primary military force. Remove them, and the others will panic. 4. Phase 2. We strike 6 Council worlds simultaneously. Not invasion, not occupation. Surgical removal of military infrastructure. We want them defenseless, not dead. Phase 3. We demonstrate that we can reach any world in Council space whenever we want. We prove that their size means nothing against our precision. An officer raised her hand. Sir, what about civilian casualties? 0 tolerance, Junho said immediately. We are not monsters. We target military installations only. Anyone who causes civilian deaths will face court-martial. The galaxy thinks we are savages. We will prove them wrong while simultaneously proving them fools for underestimating us. President Minji stepped forward. I need to be clear about something. Once we start this, there is no going back. The galaxy will know humanity as a military power. Some will fear us. Some will hate us. Is this really what we want? Admiral Heijin walked to the center of the room. Madam President, what do you think will happen if we do nothing? If we accept this insult and walk away? I suppose they will continue to ignore us. Worse, they will know they can abuse us without consequence. And abuse that goes unpunished becomes habit. Today it is a strike to the face. Tomorrow it is attacks on our ships. Next year it is invasion of our colonies. We must draw a line. By starting a war? By ending one before it truly begins, Heijin said. Right now, they do not fear us. They do not respect us. After Operation Reckoning, they will do both. And they will never dare to strike a human diplomat again. Minji was quiet for a long moment. Everyone in the room waited. Finally, she nodded. Do it. But minimize casualties. We are better than them. We need to prove it. Yes, ma'am, Heijin said. She turned to her officers. All personnel. Phase 1 begins in 72 hours. Captain Seokjin, prepare your stealth fleet. General Junho, activate all special operations teams. Dr. Sang-hyun, begin weapons deployment. The room exploded into activity. Officers ran to their stations. Screens lit up with data. Communication channels opened to ships and bases across human space. Captain Seokjin approached Heijin. Admiral, my ships have been ready for this for years. We have been training in the dark spaces between stars, learning to move without being seen. The Council does not even know we have stealth technology. Good. How long to reach Kresh space? 4 days at maximum stealth speed. We will arrive like ghosts. And the Kresh fleet? 12 capital ships, 40 cruisers, hundreds of smaller vessels. They are strong. Seokjin smiled. But strength means nothing if you cannot see your enemy. Across human space, fleets began to move. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid fields powered up their engines. Stations that looked like mining facilities revealed weapons platforms. Soldiers who had been training in secret for decades checked their equipment one final time. In a military base on Mars, Lieutenant Dae-yeon loaded specialized ammunition into her rifle. Each round was designed to punch through Kresh armor at the weak points. She had fired 10,000 practice rounds. She would not miss. On Europa, Commander Unji activated a cyber warfare suite that had cost humanity 10 years of research. It could hack into Council systems, turning their own technology against them. On Luna, pilot Minho climbed into a fighter craft that could outmaneuver anything the Council had. He had never lost a combat simulation. Now, he would get to test his skills for real. And on every human world, people watched the video of Envoy Taman being struck. They watched, and they felt something ancient wake up inside them, something that had helped humanity survive ice ages and plagues and wars, something that had made them the apex predator on their planet. The Council had forgotten something important about humans. They were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest. They did not have scales or venom or telepathy, but they had something else. Something that had allowed them to dominate an entire planet. They were persistence predators. They were the species that chased prey for days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. They were the species that turned every defeat into a lesson, and every lesson into a weapon. The Council had struck them. Now they would learn what it meant to wake a sleeping predator. Admiral Hagen stood in the command center, watching the displays as her fleets moved into position. She thought about Taman, about the blood on his face, about the laughter of the Council. This is not revenge, she said quietly to herself. This is education. We are going to teach the galaxy a very important lesson. General Junho appeared beside her. What lesson is that, Admiral? That dignity matters. That respect must be mutual. And that humanity, when pushed, does not break. She turned to look at him. We bend. We adapt. We learn. And then we push back twice as hard. Do you think they will surrender? Eventually. After they understand what we really are. And what are we, Admiral? Hagen smiled, but it was not a kind smile. We are the species that survived extinction a dozen times. We are the species that looked at a dead moon and decided to live there anyway. We are the species that split the atom, mapped our own DNA, and reached the stars using nothing but mathematics and determination. She paused. We are the species that you do not strike without consequence. The countdown on the main screen read 68 hours, until Operation Reckoning began. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, but it would learn. 3 months had passed since Envoy Taman was struck in the Council chamber. 3 months of silence from humanity. The Galactic Council believed they had won. They believed the primitive humans had accepted their place in the galaxy. They were wrong. Counselor Thex stood in the command center of his flagship, the Pride of Kresh, orbiting his home planet. He was pleased with himself. The human had bled well. The memory made him laugh. Such weak creatures, he thought. Their skin tears so easily. Around the Kresh homeworld, a defense fleet of 60 ships maintained constant patrol. These were not civilian vessels. They were warships, each one capable of destroying a small moon. The Kresh had been warriors for 10,000 years. Their military strength was legendary across the galaxy. Counselor, said his second-in-command, a younger Kresh named Vex. The long-range sensors show nothing unusual. All is quiet. Of course it is, Thex said, settling into his command chair. The humans know better than to challenge us. They are probably still crying over their injured envoy. In the darkness between stars, 15 human ships moved in absolute silence. They had been traveling for 4 days, their engines running cold, their hulls coated in materials that absorbed sensor waves instead of reflecting them. These were Captain Sokjin's stealth frigates, and they were invisible. Distance to target? Seokjin asked quietly. His command bridge was dark, lit only by the soft glow of screens. His crew worked in near silence, their movements precise and practiced. 1 million kilometers and closing, responded his navigation officer. The Kresh fleet maintains standard defensive formation. They have not detected us. Weapons status? Lieutenant Dayon looked up from her station. All kinetic systems ready. Rail guns charged. Missile tubes loaded with armor-penetrating rounds. "We can fire on your command, Captain." Seokjin studied the tactical display. 60 Kresh warships, each one 5 times larger than his frigates. It should have been suicide. It would have been, if humanity had fought the way the Council expected. "Commander Unji, are you ready?" At a separate console, Unji nodded. Her cyber warfare suite glowed with lines of code. "I am inside their communication network, Captain. They use quantum encryption, but their system architecture is 10 years old. I can disrupt their fleet coordination whenever you give the order." "Good. Remember the mission parameters. We disable their military capability. We do not massacre civilians. This is precise, surgical, and sends a message." "Understood, sir." Seokjin took a breath. This was the moment. Once he gave the order, humanity would be at war with the Galactic Council. There would be no going back. He thought about the video he had watched 100 times. Envoy Taemin, bleeding on the floor. The Council, laughing. "All ships," Seokjin said, into the fleet channel. "Weapons free. Execute Operation Reckoning." Phase 1. The darkness between stars lit up with violence. 15 human frigates opened fire simultaneously. Railguns accelerated metal slugs to 3% of light speed. Missiles streaked across space, their engines burning bright. Energy weapons, saved for point defense, began tracking targets. The Kresh fleet had no time to react. The first salvo struck 6 capital ships before they could raise shields. Kinetic rounds punched through armor plating like paper. Inside those ships, Kresh warriors died before they understood they were under attack. Explosions rippled across hulls. Atmosphere vented into space. "They are trying to coordinate a response," Unji reported. She pressed a button. Across the Kresh fleet, every communication system simultaneously failed. Ships that had been part of a coordinated defense suddenly found themselves alone, unable to talk to each other, unable to receive orders. On the Pride of Kresh, Thex stared at his screens in disbelief. Where did they come from? How did they get past our sensors? "Unknown, Counselor," Vex shouted. "Our communications are down. I cannot reach the other ships." Another wave of kinetic rounds struck the Pride of Kresh. The ship shuddered. Alarms screamed. A section of the hull tore away, exposing 3 decks to vacuum. "Return fire!" Thex roared. "Destroy them!" The Kresh ships began shooting, their massive energy weapons lighting up space. But they were firing blind, unable to coordinate, unable to lock onto targets that moved like ghosts. Human frigates dodged and weaved, their smaller size and superior maneuverability letting them dance between the attacks. "Target their weapons systems," Seokjin ordered. "Render them defenseless, but avoid killing shots when possible." His crew worked with mechanical efficiency. They had trained for this for years. Every simulation, every drill, had prepared them for exactly this moment. They were not fighting in rage. They were fighting with cold, calculated precision. A Kresh cruiser tried to ram one of the human frigates. Pilot Minho, controlling a fighter craft launched from Seokjin's ship, intercepted it. His small fighter released a spread of mines directly in the cruiser's path. The cruiser hit them at full speed. Its engines exploded. The ship went dark, drifting helplessly. "Sir," Dayun reported, "the Kresh are beginning to adapt. They are using visual targeting instead of sensors. Then blind them, deploy flash charges." Dozens of small devices launched from the human ships. They detonated in brilliant bursts of light, overwhelming the visual spectrum. The Kresh, whose eyes were adapted to their red sun, were suddenly unable to see anything but painful white light. 15 minutes after the battle began, half the Kresh fleet was disabled or destroyed. The survivors were scattered, unable to communicate, unable to see, unable to fight effectively. Thex's flagship had taken critical damage. Emergency power kept the bridge functioning, but barely. Around him, his crew worked frantically to restore systems. "This is impossible," Thex whispered. They are primitives. How can they be defeating us? Counselor, incoming transmission. Vex said. It is from the human fleet. Put it on screen. Lieutenant Dayon's face appeared on the display. She was young, perhaps 30 years old, with dark eyes that showed no mercy. Behind her, the bridge of a human warship looked utilitarian and efficient. New decoration, new ceremony, just function. Counselor Thex, Dayon said, her voice calm. I am Lieutenant Dayon of the Human Defense Fleet. Do you remember Envoy Taman? Thex said nothing. His claws gripped his command chair. 3 months ago, you struck him in the council chamber. You drew his blood. You laughed. Dayon leaned forward. We are not laughing now. Are you? You dare attack the creche? We are the military might of the council. We will crush you. You will try, Dayon said. But first, understand something. We have disabled 60% of your fleet. We have done this in 16 minutes. We could have killed everyone on every ship. We chose not to. We are not barbarians. But we are not weak, either. What do you want? We want the galaxy to understand a simple truth. Humanity came to you in peace. We offered friendship. You answered with violence. This is the consequence. She paused. We are not seeking extermination. We are seeking respect. Remember this moment, Counselor. Remember that when humanity says no more, we mean it. I will report this to the Council. They will mobilize the full might of the galaxy against you. Good. Tell them. Tell them exactly what happened here. Tell them that humanity has been preparing for 30 years. Tell them we know every weakness of every species in the Council. Tell them we can reach any world, any time, and there is nothing they can do to stop us. Dayon's expression hardened. And tell them, this is only the beginning. The transmission ended. Finish the mission, Seokjin ordered. Target their orbital defense platforms. Render this world unable to threaten anyone for the next decade. The human fleet spent the next hour systematically destroying military installations on and around the creche home world. They did not target cities. They did not attack civilian centers. Every shot was precise, every target military. But when they were done, the creche had no defensive capability left. Seokjin recorded a message to be sent to the Galactic Council. This is Captain Seokjin of the Human Defense Fleet. Today, we have demonstrated our capability and our restraint. The creche fleet is neutralized. Their world is defenseless. But we have not harmed civilians. We have not bombed cities. We could have. We chose not to. This is the difference between justice and revenge. He looked directly into the camera. The galaxy thinks we are primitive. Today, we have shown that primitive does not mean weak. It means we remember the old ways. We remember that actions have consequences. We remember that respect must be mutual. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. Counselor Thex struck Envoy Taman. This was our response. If the Council wishes to negotiate, we will listen. If the Council wishes to fight, we are ready. The choice is yours. But understand this. Humanity does not bluff. We say what we mean. We do what we say. And we never, ever forget. The message was sent on all frequencies. Within hours, it would reach every world in the galaxy. The human fleet began to withdraw, slipping back into the darkness between stars. Behind them, the creche fleet floated in pieces. Rescue ships were already moving to help survivors. The humans had disabled, not massacred. But the message was clear. On Earth, Admiral Heijin watched the battle reports with satisfaction. Phase 1 complete. 0 civilian casualties. Military objectives achieved. Captain Seokjin performed exactly as expected. 0 battle civilian. 0 battle C. 1717-1. Purport of civilian. What now? Asked President Minji. Now we wait. We see if they are smart enough to understand what just happened. We see if they are smart enough to negotiate. And if they are not, then Phase 2 begins. 6 worlds, simultaneously. And then they will understand that we are not bluffing. General Junho entered the command center. Admiral, we are receiving communications from the Galactic Council. They are in chaos. Some species are calling for immediate surrender. Others are demanding military retaliation. Counselor Miras is requesting direct communication with our leadership. The bird species? Heejin asked. The one who tried to speak for us in the council? Yes, ma'am. Interesting. She was the only one who showed sense. Let us hear what she has to say. A communication screen activated. Miras appeared. Her 6 wings folded in a gesture of distress. Admiral Heijin, she said. I warned them. I told them not to underestimate your species. They would not listen. Are you calling to surrender? Heijin asked. I am calling to beg you to stop before this goes further. The Council is preparing to mobilize fleets from 20 worlds. They believe they can overwhelm you with numbers. They can try. They will fail, will they not? Heijin smiled. What do you think, Counselor? Miras looked tired. I think humanity has been planning this for a very long time. I think you have studied us and learned our weaknesses. I think the creche were only the first demonstration. You are wise, Counselor. Perhaps the only wise member of your council. Then please, talk to me. Tell me what you want. War helps no one. War? Heejin shook her head. This is not war. This is education. The galaxy struck our envoy. Now the galaxy learns what happens when you attack humanity. When the lesson is learned, we can talk about peace. How many more worlds must fall before the lesson is complete? That depends on how quickly the council learns. The communication ended. Heijin turned to her officers. Prepare Phase 2. The Grand Assembly Hall was in chaos. Representatives from 40 species shouted at each other, their voices mixing into an incomprehensible noise. High Arbiter Velmoth tried to restore order by striking his ceremonial gong, but no one was listening anymore. 2 weeks had passed since the Creche fleet was destroyed. 2 weeks of fear spreading across council space, like a disease. This is your fault, screamed a delegate whose species resembled walking crystals. You insulted them. You struck their envoy. Now look what has happened. One quote, the Creche were the strongest military in the council. Another delegate said, his tentacles writhing in agitation. If the humans can defeat them in 16 minutes, what chance do the rest of us have? Velmoth finally managed to silence the chamber. We must remain calm. We have mobilized fleets from 20 worlds. Surely the combined might of the Council can defeat these primitives. Counselor Miras spread her wings. You still call them primitives? After what they did to the Creche? Are you blind, Velmoth? They are not primitive. They are dangerous. There is a difference. They got lucky, Thek said from his seat. His scales were scarred from the battle, and one of his eyes was covered with medical equipment. One victory means nothing. When our combined fleets arrive, we will crush them. Will we? Miras challenged. They knew exactly where to strike the Creche fleet. They knew exactly how to disable your communications. They knew your weaknesses. Do you think they do not know everyone else's weaknesses too? The chamber fell silent. It was a terrifying thought. For 30 years, the Council had been trading with humanity, sharing biological data, cultural information, technological specifications. They had thought they were teaching the humans about civilization. What if the humans had been studying them instead? We cannot show fear, Velmoth said. If we negotiate now, we appear weak. Every minor species in the galaxy will think they can challenge the Council. And if we continue fighting, we may lose everything, Miras said. Pride is not worth extinction. Before anyone could respond, the lights in the chamber began to flicker. Screens activated without being commanded. An image appeared on every display, and a voice spoke through every communication system. It was Admiral Heejin, "Honored Council," she said, her tone formal but cold. "I am Fleet Admiral Hagen, of the Human Defense Fleet. You have mobilized 20 fleets to attack humanity. This was a mistake. Allow me to demonstrate why." The image changed. It showed 6 different worlds simultaneously. Each one was a major council planet, home to billions of beings. Each one was protected by defensive fleets and orbital platforms. "These are your worlds," Hagen said. "In exactly 60 seconds, humanity will strike all 6 simultaneously. Watch." "This is a trick," Velmoth shouted. "They cannot possibly reach all 6 worlds at once. They do not have the ships," but the timer on the screen was counting down. 50 seconds. 40. 30. Miras felt her heart, all 3 of them, begin to race. "Evacuate those worlds. Send the warning." "There is no time," Hagen's voice said calmly. "But do not worry. We are not monsters. Watch and learn." The timer reached 0. On 6 worlds across Council space, human ships appeared as if materializing from nothing. They had been hiding in dark space, in the shadows of moons, in orbits calculated to avoid all sensors. They struck with perfect coordination. On Velrax Prime, homeworld of Velmoth's species, kinetic rounds destroyed the orbital defense network in the first 30 seconds. The Vrex, who communicated through pheromones, suddenly found their communication failing as human chemical weapons filled the air of their command centers. They could not coordinate. They could not respond. On another world, home to a species that relied on quantum computation for their military systems, Commander Yunji's cyber warfare suite injected code that made their systems believe everything was fine, while human forces disabled every weapon platform. On a third world, where the species had thick armor and prided themselves on being invulnerable, Lieutenant Dion's specialized rounds found the weak points that Dr. Sang-Yun had identified decades ago: joints, eyes, sensory organs. Each strike was different because each species was different, but the result was the same. In less than 1 hour, 6 major council worlds were defenseless, and throughout it all, human forces avoided civilian targets. They disabled military installations. They destroyed weapons platforms. They eliminated defensive capabilities. But they did not bomb cities. They did not attack hospitals or schools or homes. It was a demonstration of capability combined with restraint. It was a message that said, "We can destroy you, but we choose not to." In the Grand Assembly Hall, the Council watched in horror. The screens showed their proud civilizations, rendered helpless by a species they had called primitive just months ago. "Impossible," Velmoth whispered. "How can they be everywhere at once?" "Because they planned this," Miras said quietly. "For 30 years, while we thought we were teaching them, they were studying us, learning our weaknesses, positioning their forces, waiting for us to give them a reason. And we gave them one," said another counselor, his voice hollow. Thex struck their envoy. All eyes turned to Thex. The reptilian counselor looked around the chamber, seeing accusation in every face. I did not know," he said weakly. "How could I know? They were capable of this." "You should have treated their envoy with respect," Miras said. "That is basic diplomacy. That is basic decency. But you laughed. You all laughed." She was right. They had all laughed when Taman was struck. They had all agreed that humans were primitives who needed to be taught their place. Now their worlds were burning, and it was their own fault. The screens changed again. Admiral Hagen reappeared. But this time, she was not alone. Behind her stood General Junho, President Minji, and Envoy Taman. The scar on Taman's face was clearly visible. He had not allowed doctors to remove it. "The 6 worlds we have struck today will recover," Hagen said. "We have not harmed your civilians. We have not destroyed your cities. We could have. We chose not to. Do you understand the difference? President Minji stepped forward. The Galactic Council struck our envoy. The Council laughed at our pain. The Council called us primitives. So, we educated you. We showed you what primitives can do when they are underestimated. What do you want? Velmoth asked, his mechanical voice distorted with fear. What will make you stop? Envoy Taman spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, but there was steel in it. Did you show me mercy when you struck me, counselor? Did you ask what would make me stop bleeding? I apologize. I was wrong. We were all wrong. Yes, you were. And now, you will learn what it means to be wrong in such a fundamental way. General Junho brought up a new display. It showed every council world, every fleet, every military installation. They were all marked with red targeting indicators. We can reach any target in council space within 4 days, Junho said. We have weapons specific to each species. We know your biology. We know your psychology. We know how to defeat you. And most importantly, we know you cannot stop us. Your 20 fleets? Heijin smiled. We have been tracking them since they launched. Would you like to see? The display changed, showing the positions of all 20 council fleets that had been mobilized to attack humanity. And surrounding each fleet, like wolves circling prey, were human ships. At this moment, we have forces in position to destroy every one of your fleets, Heijin said. We have not attacked because we are hoping you will make the intelligent choice. Surrender. Negotiate. Accept that humanity is not beneath you. The council chamber was silent. It was the silence of defeat. The silence of a civilization, realizing it had made a terrible mistake. What do you want from us? Miras asked. She had taken over as spokesperson because Velmoth seemed unable to speak. First, the council will formally apologize for the attack on Envoy Taman, President Minji said. Second, humanity will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council with veto power over military actions. Third, all council military forces will be subject to inspection by human observers to ensure compliance with our terms. You want to control the council? Someone asked. No. We want to ensure the council never again mistakes peace for weakness. We want to ensure that no species ever suffers what we suffered. And if we refuse? Heijin's expression hardened. Then we continue, Phase 3. We demonstrate that we can destroy any target, anytime, anywhere. We prove that council space is now effectively under human control, whether you acknowledge it or not. Eventually, you will surrender. The only question is how much you lose before that happens. Velmoth finally found his voice. This is not right. You cannot force the entire galaxy to bow to one species. We are not forcing anyone to bow, Taman said. We are insisting on respect. There is a difference. The Council had 40 member species, all treated as equals. Now there will be 41. We are not asking for dominance. We are demanding equality, by force. You taught us that force is the language you understand. You struck me. You laughed. You said we were primitives. So we spoke to you in a language you could not misunderstand. Miras looked around the chamber. She saw fear. She saw anger. She saw pride being crushed by reality. But she also saw something else. The slow realization that the humans were right. I will vote to accept their terms, she said. We brought this upon ourselves. We insulted them. We attacked their representative. Now we face the consequences. But notice that they have not exterminated us. They have not enslaved us. They have not done any of the things we would have done in their position. What are you saying? Another counselor asked. I am saying that humanity has shown both strength and mercy. They have proven they can destroy us, but they have chosen not to. That is not the behavior of barbarians. That is the behavior of a species that is more civilized than we are. The words hung in the air. Slowly, Other counselors began to nod. They did not want to admit it. Their pride screamed against it. But the truth was undeniable. Humanity had won. Velmoth slumped in his seat. Very well. We accept your terms. The Council will formally apologize. Humanity will be granted membership with veto power. Our military forces will submit to inspection. And one more thing, Taman said. Counselor Thex will personally apologize to me. Thex stood up, his scales pale with shock. You cannot ask this of me. I am a Kresh warrior. I do not apologize. Then you can watch your homeworld burn, Taman said simply. The choice is yours. For a long moment, Thex stood frozen. His pride warred with his survival instinct. Finally, survival won. Slowly, he descended from his seat and walked to where Taman stood on the floor of the chamber. He knelt. It was a position no Kresh warrior had taken in 10,000 years. But he took it now. I apologize for striking you, Envoy Taman. I was wrong. I beg your forgiveness. Taman looked down at him. The scar on his face seemed to glow in the chamber's light. I do not forgive you, Taman said. But I accept your apology. Stand up. Your pride is wounded, but you will survive. Your species will survive, because humanity, unlike you, knows the difference between justice and revenge. Thex stood and returned to his seat. He looked broken, defeated. The Council had fallen apart, and humanity had rebuilt it in a single day. Admiral Heejin smiled. Phase 3 is complete. Stand down all forces. Begin negotiating the new Council Charter. In command centers across human space, soldiers received the order to stand down. They had won without firing another shot after the initial demonstrations. They had won by showing both capability and restraint. They had won by being exactly what the Council said they were not: civilized. 1 year had passed since the Council fell apart. The Grand Assembly Hall looked the same on the outside, still orbiting Velrax Prime, still shining in the darkness of space. But inside, everything had changed. Envoy Taman walked through the corridors toward the main chamber. His footsteps echoed on the polished floor. The scar on his face had healed as much as it ever would. He could have had it removed with advanced medical technology. He chose not to. Let them see it, he thought. Let them remember. Behind him walked Ambassador Jiwan, now promoted to High Counselor for Humanity. She wore the formal robes of Council office, but underneath them was the tactical armor of a soldier. She would always be a soldier first. Are you ready for this? She asked Taman. He touched the scar on his face. I have been ready for a year. The question is whether they are ready. They reached the main chamber doors. The guards, now a mix of humans and council species working together, opened them. The chamber beyond was full. Every species had sent their representatives, but the arrangement had changed. The circular seating was still there, but now humanity had a seat equal to all others. More importantly, humanity had veto power over military actions, and standing behind each council seat was a human military observer, watching, recording, ensuring compliance. High Arbiter Miras sat in the highest seat now. Velmoth had been removed from power after the surrender. His species had demanded it, ashamed of how badly he had miscalculated. Miras had been chosen because she was the only one who had shown sense during the crisis. She spread her 6 wings in greeting as Taman entered. Envoy Taman, welcome back to the Council. Your presence honors us. Taman walked to the center of the floor. The same spot where he had stood a year ago. The same spot where he had been struck. He looked around at all the faces watching him. Some showed respect. Some showed fear. Some showed barely hidden resentment. Thank you, High Arbiter, Taman said. It is strange to stand here again. The last time I stood in this place, I was bleeding. I was mocked. I was sent away like a child, being dismissed by adults. The chamber was silent. No one wanted to be reminded of that day. Today, I return not as a petitioner but as an equal. Not because we asked nicely, not because we begged, but because we proved that respect cannot be given selectively. It must be mutual, or it means nothing. Former High Arbiter Velmoth, now sitting in a minor delegate's seat, shifted uncomfortably. Taman looked directly at him. High Arbiter Velmoth, do you remember what you said to me? You said humanity could reapply for membership in a century. You said we needed to leave our savage nature behind. I was wrong, Velmoth said, his voice small through the translator. I see that now. Yes. You were wrong. But your mistake was understandable. You looked at humanity and saw only what we appeared to be. Young, physically weak, technologically inferior. You did not see what we actually are. And what are you? Asked a counselor whose species resembled walking trees. Taman smiled. But it was not a happy smile. We are survivors. We are a species that evolved on a planet that tried to kill us in every possible way. Ice ages, diseases, predators with claws and teeth. We had none of these advantages. We were slow. We were weak. We could not survive in most of our own planet's environments. He paused, letting the words sink in. So we adapted. We learned. We made tools. We made fire. We made clothing and shelter. We turned our biggest weakness into our greatest strength. Our bodies are fragile, so we learned to think. We learned to plan. We learned to prepare for every possible threat. President Minji entered the chamber, accompanied by Admiral Heijin and General Junho. They took their seats in the human section. Minji stood to address the council. For 30 years, while the council believed they were teaching us, we were studying you. We obtained biological samples through trade. We analyzed your military tactics. We identified weaknesses, not because we wanted war, but because we learned long ago that the species that is not prepared is the species that goes extinct. And when we came to you seeking membership, you struck our envoy, Admiral Heijin added. That was the moment you showed us what you truly were. Not the advanced civilization you claimed to be. Not the peaceful union you pretended to be. But arrogant beings who believed might makes right. So, we educated you, General Junho said. We showed you that humanity, when pushed, does not break. We bend. We adapt. We learn. And then we push back with overwhelming force. Counselor Thex rose from his seat. He looked older now, his scales dull, his movements slow. You humiliated us. You destroyed our fleets. You made us kneel. Yes, Taman said simply. We did. Just as you humiliated me. Just as you tried to make humanity kneel. The difference is that we rebuilt what we destroyed. Your fleets are being repaired with human assistance. Your worlds are defended by joint peacekeeping forces. We did not occupy. We did not enslave. We corrected. A new voice spoke up, young and uncertain. It was a delegate from a species that had not been present during the original incident. What is to stop humanity from simply ruling the council by force? You have proven you can defeat any of us. Why should we not fear that you will become tyrants? It was a fair question. The entire chamber waited for the answer. Taman walked to the young delegate. Because we do not want to rule you. We want to live alongside you as equals. Do you know what humanity learned from our history? We learned that empires fall. We learned that tyrants are eventually overthrown. We learned that the only sustainable peace is one built on mutual respect, not fear. But you did use fear, the delegate said. You terrorized the council into submission. No, we used consequence. There is a difference. Taman gestured to his scarred face. We could accept the insult and teach our children that we are lesser beings. Or we could respond and teach our children that dignity matters. We chose the second option. Not because we wanted war, because we wanted respect. President Minji stood beside Taemin. The new council charter has been written. Every species retains sovereignty over their own worlds. Every species has equal voting power on non-military matters. But military actions now require unanimous approval. Why? Asked Miras. Why give everyone that power? Because the council failed when it became a tool for the strong to dominate the weak. We are ensuring that never happens again. Humanity has veto power, yes, but so does everyone else. If we become aggressive, if we betray these principles, any one of you can stop us. And if we try to stop you, you will simply conquer us again, Velmoth said bitterly. No, Admiral Hajin said. If you need to stop us, it means we have become what we fought against. It means we have forgotten the lesson we taught you. And, if that happens, we deserve to be stopped. It was a remarkable statement. The most powerful military force in the galaxy, voluntarily limiting its own power, trusting that others would hold them accountable. I do not understand humans, said a counselor whose species communicated through color changes on their skin. You could rule everything. Why do you choose not to? Jiwon stood. Because ruling everything is exhausting. Because empires collapse under their own weight. Because we learned from watching you that being at the top of a hierarchy does not make you safe. It makes you a target. She looked around the chamber. We do not want to be your rulers. We want to be your partners, your equals, your friends, if you will allow it. After what happened, how can there be friendship? Thex asked. The same way there is friendship between people who have fought and reconciled, through honesty, through respecting boundaries, through remembering what happens when those boundaries are violated. Taemin walked back to the center of the floor. 1 year ago, I stood here bleeding. I said that humanity would remember. We have. We remember the insult. We remember the pain, but we also remember that we chose to respond with precision rather than massacre. We disabled your fleets, but we did not bomb your cities. We could have killed millions. We chose not to. That choice defines us. He turned slowly, meeting the eyes of every delegate. The question now is, what defines you? Will you be the council that learned from its mistakes? Or will you be the council that resents humanity for teaching you those lessons? Miras stood, her wings spreading wide. I vote that we accept the new charter. I vote that we welcome humanity as full members, with all rights and responsibilities. Not because they forced us, but because they earned it. They showed both strength and mercy. They showed us what true civilization looks like. One by one, other counselors stood. Some eagerly, some reluctantly. But they stood. I vote yes, said the tree-like counselor. Yes, said another. Yes, yes. Even Velmoth eventually stood. Yes, I vote yes. Finally, only Thex remained seated. All eyes turned to him. The chamber waited. Slowly, painfully, Thex rose to his feet. I vote yes. Not because I want to. Not because I have forgiven humanity for humiliating us, but because I understand now that pride is not worth extinction. My people deserve to survive. For that, I vote yes. The vote is unanimous, Miras declared. Humanity is now a full member of the Galactic Council. The new charter is adopted. May we build a better future together. Cheers erupted from some sections. Others applauded politely, but the sound filled the chamber. Later, after the ceremony ended, Taemin and Jiwon stood at a window overlooking Earth. The planet hung in space, blue and white and beautiful. Ships moved in orbit. Human vessels and council vessels working side by side. Did we do the right thing? Jiwon asked. All that death, all that destruction. Was it worth it? Taemin touched his scar. Ask me that question in 50 years. If the galaxy is at peace, if species respect each other, if no one ever strikes a diplomat again, then yes, it was worth it. And if not, then we will have failed. But we will have tried. That is all any species can do. They watched Earth turn slowly in the void. Around it, ships from 40 different species maintained patrol. Not as conquerors, not as guards, but as partners in a new order. An order built on the lesson that humanity had taught with blood and fire. Respect is not optional. It is not conditional. It is not something to be granted to the strong and denied to the weak. It is the foundation of civilization. And civilizations that forget that lesson do not last. Somewhere in the station, Admiral Heejin was briefing her officers. Maintain readiness. We have won the peace. But peace must be defended. Stay vigilant. Stay prepared. Hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Somewhere else, Dr. Sang-hyun was dismantling weapons systems, hoping they would never be needed again, knowing they probably would be someday. And in the Grand Assembly Hall, the Council continued their work. New laws were debated. New trade agreements were signed. Slowly, carefully, the galaxy learned to work together instead of competing for dominance. It would not be easy. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. But they were trying. And in the center of it all was humanity. Not ruling. Not dominating. Just watching. Making sure the lesson they had taught so painfully was never forgotten. Taemin touched his scar one last time. It was a reminder. A warning. A promise. Strike us, and we will strike back. But treat us with respect, and we will be the best friends you ever had. The galaxy had learned which choice to make, and humanity hoped they would never forget.